Thank you for coming, everyone. My name is Michael Haggard of the Haggard Law Firm, and along with my partner, Pedro Echarte, and Ricky Patel, our co-counsel, we're here to announce this morning that we have filed a wrongful death and 2 personal injury lawsuits in Monroe County, the 16th Judicial Circuit of the state of Florida, in the unthinkable Keys parasailing tragedy that happened May 30th of this year in Marathon, Florida. As all of you know, Supraja Alaparthi lost her life, leaving behind her husband, Srinivaso, which I will call Srini throughout the press conference, and their 2 children lost their mother that day. As you know, 10-year-old Echarte, who actually was on the parasailing ride with his mother, and their 6-year-old daughter, Adira, who was on the boat as this tragedy unfolded. And Vincent, her 9-year-old nephew, was airlifted from Marathon, taken to Nicholas Children's Hospital, where he spent a week treating his traumatic permanent injuries. You know, when you think about it, when a family comes to Florida for a dream vacation to do a commercial activity, to really one of our jewels of Florida, the Florida Keys, to do a parasailing commercial activity that should be safe, that should be regulated, where you have a captain that is trained and who should be certified, and to have something as unthinkable and horrific as this occur, it's something that Mr. Echarte and I are going to talk to you about today. Florida regulators and the legislature needs to revisit and enhance the safety laws for these activities. And as you all have covered this event that happened almost a month ago now, you have heard the many acts of negligence which have occurred, one of which being the weather that day. And some might have said, well, this weather might have come out of nowhere, that they put up this family, this beautiful family, a mother, her 10-year-old son, her 9-year-old nephew. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see for the first time what the weather looked like the moment that this family went up in the air. We have 2 photographs for you here, and I'll show this one first. This is literally 10 seconds after the parasail was released into that weather, with that chop, with those clouds. So if Lighthouse Parasail, or Pips Marina, which we'll talk about later, says at any point in time that the weather came out of nowhere, there was no warning, this is from the family. The photographs, the video, that 11 members of the family were on the boat watching what happened in this tragedy to their own family. The weather was horrific. Our investigation has shown that the day before, Lighthouse Parasail canceled several rides. We have talked to not only the Good Samaritan, which you've read about in this case, who's a charter boat captain that came in early that day, but over 5 other vessels throughout Marathon that came in early because of the horrific winds, the weather that was coming in through the Middle Keys that day. In fact, the family had several conversations with both the captain and the first mate. We can come back tomorrow. We're here the entire weekend. We can come back, to which the captain said, no, we will be fine, and took them up in this terrible weather. It was absolute negligence and a violation of a statute in the state of Florida to put those 3 innocent souls multiple hundreds of feet in the air in this day. And why do we know that? Right after they were put up, within a minute or 2, and again, you can see the weather when the family is 100 feet up or 200 feet up in the air. The captain immediately began to lose control of the parasail. The parasail, the boat would not move. It became unnavigable. As I've told you, there were 14 people on that boat, including a captain and mate, 12 passengers. With the parasail up in the air in uncontrollable winds, over 22 mile an hour sustained winds, gusts of over 33 miles an hour at this particular time, the captain could no longer control the parasail or control his boat. He had his boat to capacity. The boat faced a risk of capsizing because they could not control the parasail. They started to go over shallow water or flats near the 7 Mile Bridge. And of course, the other obstacle that became an immediate concern was the 7 Mile Bridge and whether the boat would hit it and what would happen. So at that point in time, because of the captain's decision to put up 3 individuals up in the air in uncontrollable winds, he made the fatal mistake of cutting the parasail. And he lost all control of that parasail so that his boat wouldn't run aground. He had no emergency plan of what to do. Many of you all have seen the YouTube video that was taken by the Good Samaritan showing that parasail crossing the ocean at high speeds, unattached to the boat with no control. That was the captain's decision to absolutely let these 3 people, a mother, a son, and a nephew, go uncontrolled on the water that day heading towards the 7 Mile Bridge. He had no emergency plan or what to do in that situation. And if you've watched the beginning of that video, you see the parasail go right over the boat. And I want everyone to think about Srini as his wife and his son are going over the boat, close enough to where many of the passengers, all family members, yelling to the captain, hook them, use a rescue device, jump in the water, do something to save our family. They saw them screaming, saw them yelling for help as the wind gusted again and took them away from the boat. The captain, the mate, did nothing. They asked to borrow passengers' life jackets, indicating that possibly they did not have enough life jackets. They were on cell phones versus a radio that is required at that point in time. Vincent's father screaming to him as he's going off into the distance. And as we know, they traveled up to 2 miles until that parasail collided with the 7 Mile Bridge. We know that Supatha died of blunt trauma and drowning. Attached to, and I'll show you yet another picture. Obviously, this is the family here with Adira, Arpath, and their mother. And here is one of the final pictures. Right before they were released. And you see how close they are together. And I want to take you to the 7 Mile Bridge, where Supraha died on impact and drowned, and her son was attached to her, and her nephew was attached to her, as the Good Samaritans were heroic that day and saved these 2 boys, but couldn't save their mother and aunt. All because of the outrageous decision to put them up in this weather. Now, the defendants in this case, today we filed against Lighthouse Parasail, who operated this company. We will shortly file against Pips Marina, which is the marina that allowed Lighthouse Parasail to operate out of there. They're a joint venture along with them. They run that marina. And I could tell you, and we have photographic evidence for you today, that since the day that this occurred, Pips Marina has tried to erase parasailing from their resume. They have whited out parasail from the sign in front of their marina. They have taken away all the brochures, and they have stopped Lighthouse Parasail from operating from there. And we can show you that evidence from Google Earth images taken before the incident and obviously investigative pictures after. While the authorities continue their investigation, FWC, the Coast Guard, and Monroe County Sheriff's Office, we would ask anyone who was there that day in the Keys that weekend, who was on the bridge, who was in the area at Sunset Grill, to please contact the media, contact our law firm at haggardlawfirm.com. We have had so many witnesses through social media who've already contacted the family, contacted the authorities to talk about their charters being canceled that day, why they didn't go out on the water that day, and others who had been with Lighthouse Parasail the day before where all the charters were canceled. We would ask those witnesses to continue to come forward. As many of you might know, our firm also represents the mother of Tyree Sampson in the terrible Icon Park tragedy where Tyree Sampson fell over 200 feet to his death. We have a problem in Florida. We have a problem with our biggest industry, the tourist industry, which is underregulated, not inspected, and in some cases not safe. That is a problem for all of us as Floridians. And we've got to get to the bottom of what happened here to this family, where all they tried to do was take the trip of a lifetime, and the matriarch of the family loses her life in an unexplainable, horrific accident that could have been prevented in 10 different ways, simple decisions that day. We'll open up for questions for both Pedro and myself, if any of y'all have any.
Do you know whether any criminal charges are going to come in, and what is your belief? Do you think that the captain of the company should be facing criminal charges?
Yes, it's still under investigation by the agencies that we've talked about, and we fully believe that they violated the statute, and there should be criminal charges. And going beyond that, we feel that this statute that was passed several years ago, because of other parasailing incidents, needs to be revisited, because this isn't, unfortunately, an isolated situation.
Who controls the regulations as far as the industry for this particular situation? I mean, who's the final say, and who do you go after?
Well, the defendants are obviously Lighthouse Parasail and Pips Marina. The agencies that we're talking to vary. The Department of Agriculture has some oversight. The Coast Guard sometimes issues rules, as does the FWC. And the statute that we've referenced in the complaint is a Florida statute. So it's passed by the Florida legislature. So we plan to go back to the Florida legislature to enhance that statute more, but also deal with the other investigative agencies.
Without getting too graphic, did the three of them actually hit the bridge, or were they dragged up and down in the water, and that's eventually what caused their death?
It was both. It's our understanding, based on the eyewitnesses that we've spoken to, that they were dragged violently across the water, and then unfortunately it culminated in them being the parasail hitting the bridge, the old 7 Mile bridge, and then being whipped around and sustaining serious and ultimately life-threatening injuries to at least one of the victims when she slammed into the bridge.
We also seen reports that the family might have moved to Florida, so they were still living in Illinois.
Yeah, the family all lives in Chicago. Right now, the Alaparthy family is in India, following custom, and during the burial process, which is takes over a month. So they're still there, but the rest of the family is in Chicago. Vincent, who was at Nicholas Children's Hospital for a week, is following up with plastic surgeons and different types to try to deal with his traumatic injuries, which were to his eye, to his orbital region, his face, and other injuries.
You said the captain cut the rope in order to save the boat from being dragged?
Yeah, that's our understanding, and that is the last thing you do in this situation. There was other maneuvers he could have taken. There's ways that he could have tried to maneuver his vessel to deflate the sail, to regain control of not just the parasail, but of the vessel. Unfortunately, he did the one thing that you're not supposed to do in this situation, especially when you have winds that are gusting at the speeds that they were gusting on this day.
So that's not the procedure, obviously, is you do exactly what you just said.
That is the last thing you do in this situation. That is the absolute last thing you do. But unfortunately, he did it because the boat was at capacity. He was drifting into the shallows, and he tried to save the boat. And unfortunately, he made this horrific decision to cut that parasail free.
Following the collision with the bridge, how long did it take for another vessel to arrive to help them?
Thankfully, he was not. He saw this happening. The video that you see of the parasail going across the water that's been posted on YouTube and that our office can provide you, that was actually taken by him because he saw that there was a problem even before he started taking that video. And he started taking that video, and then once he sees it going towards the 7 Mile Bridge, he already started heading in that direction. And he knew, and the parasail vessel did not approach the bridge because, again, it was shallow water, so they just decided to stand back. But fortunately, he was there very quickly thereafter.
Okay. In that video, had the captain already cut the line, or were they still attached to the boat at that point?
There's different videos out there. I think the video that we're referring to, the line had already been cut. It's the one where they're going across the water, that the line had already been cut.
And just on that note, that's why we make the call to these witnesses, because there are so many people that saw this. It was obviously a very busy weekend down in the Keys. The 7 Mile Bridge, as we all know, sometimes there's a lot of traffic. And to see, I mean, if you've all, again, like Pedro said, we'll give you the video again. I'm sure you all have seen it. I mean, it's horrific. You're watching a family being dragged out of control. So a lot of people took cell phone video from their boats that we're not confident we have all of them yet, or even the investigative agencies. So we really want to gather all these and get them to the authorities so that they can address the question that you asked.
You might have said at the beginning, and I didn't catch it, how long has this company been established, as far as you know?
Do you have any?
I know that they were established up in North Carolina for quite some time, and then they started this venture down in Marathon jointly with Captain Pips a couple years ago. I don't have the exact date, but that's something that we can get you. But it has been a few years that they've been operating out of that marina.
Records show people employed, or obviously do they go through the run, or is it just kind of like, I mean,
It was a Florida corporation. It was an established Florida corporation that had been operating out of that marina for a couple years.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Prior to going up, was there any type of, were you aware of like a safety briefing that they underwent? Did they know, were they ever told what to do in the event of an emergency? And did they know that high winds were a possibility?
No, the family, when they got there that day, they talked to them, is everything okay? And people were mentioning the weather. The family said a number of times, we're here for several days. We can come back tomorrow and everything like that. In fact, you can hear on some of the video that the family has, where one group did go up and they completed their ride. And at that point in time, the captain, the mate, and others are talking about the weather starting to change, the weather, and they said, well, we can go tomorrow. No, we're probably good, and they put them up. So as we all know in these situations, you're a family, you trust the captain. You trust this operation that they saw the brochure for, all the glorious marketing materials. These are folks that know what they're doing. But it's obvious that the captain and mate knew because they canceled trips the day before and they were contemplating this one, that they had a situation on their hand as early as when they were at the dock. Forget about being out on the water.
Yeah, and one thing to make clear is that based on our investigation, there's other captains in that area that had seen on the radar this storm coming as early as 1.5 to 2 hours before. So any contention that the weather just changed like that doesn't hold up. This weather, they had warnings of this. This was on the radar and it was coming in well before that voyage even started.
And they did or did not have a weather radar on the boat?
We have not been able to inspect the vessel as of yet. We're coordinating that now, and the authorities still have the parasail and some of the navigational devices, so we're going to be able to inspect all that. But I will tell you what's interesting is Pedro and I saw these pictures when the family sent them to us over the weekend. So the whole time we're looking at weather reports, which are not good, over 22 mile an hour sustained winds. We had seen that video. If you look at that video, with the parasail going across the water, you can hear the winds. And if you've ever been on the water, you know that those are winds you don't want to be on the water about. But these pictures tell it all. I mean, look at those clouds. I mean, you don't have to be a 20-year captain to see that that's a problem with the weather. That's why all these boats were coming in and have been coming in for hours, where folks that are just fishing, they're not putting up people 200 feet in the air in a parasail. We're talking about people that are just fishing, might get a little rough. fish in the rain all the time. They're coming in, experienced, seasoned Keys charter boat captains are coming in because of weather. And Lighthouse Parasail decided to put a family 200 feet in the air in that weather.
Just quickly, I don't know if you guys are Spanish a little bit, or is anybody that can say a little thing in Spanish? Just
My Spanish is terrible.
is it bad?
Yeah, it's
You
bad.
don't want to go into
I would rather not go into it.
Okay.
If I had a script, maybe, but
How much of, what are the damages? What are they looking for as far as, damage?
You know, I mean, it's tough for me to describe the damage in this case. I mean, to think of, you know, this child looking at his mother in her last moments. I mean, you've seen the picture. I mean, they are attached together. And she, according to the medical examiner report, she died of both blunt trauma and drowning. And to witness that as a child, to be the father, you're on the boat and you see your wife and your son, as your 6-year-old is screaming on the boat, your life pass over the boat. And there's nothing you can do. And these captains won't even, like Pedro said, won't even leave the flats to chase the parasail, to do something. So the damages case are insurmountable. We can't do the one thing that Pedro and I would want to do, which would bring her back and to heal Vincent, who's had traumatic personal injuries. So it's up to a Monroe County jury to decide. This vast pain and suffering, the loss of the capacity to enjoy life of this family, and to think of, you know, just all the different things. I mean, a nephew, to see your aunt go through that. And these children are affected. We've talked to them. They can't speak about these incidents. You can't talk to them about it. And the family can't talk to them about it. So no, it's going to be up to a Monroe County jury. And at some point, we may be seeking punitive damages here because of just the extreme evidence of negligence in this case.
Any other questions? No?
And feel free, if you want to close-ups of the poster boards or any of the videos we discussed, if there's anything you all want to discuss, we'll be here for a little bit. Thank you so much.
thank you, everybody.